Okay, we're on to the ears this week. So last week we covered the eyes, and previous to that we did the nose and the mouth. And now we're on to the point where we can just get these lovely cartilage shapes of the ears into our model. So last week we got some eyes in, and you can see there that it's starting to come to life a little bit now. I've got a lot of life in that face area, and the other areas are starting to look quite lacking. So if you do remember, and if you've been following along, we put in these things here, which were just two cylinders, and they basically just allowed us to have placeholders for the ears. Now they're a little bit high there. So what we're looking for is the ears should be roughly the bottom of the nose and roughly around the eye level as well. So that pretty much gives us what we'd want as a base for the ears. So if we can now just, if you notice there's little lines on those little cylinders. And the reason that's there is because I use, in the post-processing, I've got curvature on, which will give you those lines, and I don't want them for this next bit. So it looks good, and it can give us, on the model itself, it looks quite good, and it gives it some nice graphical quality, really. But we don't want that. We want to get rid of that. So let's have a look at what we need in terms of reference. So we need an ear reference, so I'll give you one down below in the description. So we'll just go and load that in. So we'll go over to background, tap on the background image, say plus, from photos, and I'll bring in an ear. Now that's one I've just made with I've got some colour sets in it for you there. So we're going to make it in those colour sets. So that means that we'll make the yellow first, the outer bit, the red bit, the inner bit. It's all cartilage, so it's very, very simple. It's not like we have to work out a lot of muscles. It's just core shapes. And we'll just use this cylinder that we've got, and we'll use that as a template. So that'll make it nice and easy for us, because it means we've already got something that's close to the side of the head. So we'll just change the colour a little bit. So just pick colour from the head, and we'll just flood it on. We don't want any shininess. We certainly don't want any metalness. And we'll just fill that in there. Force paint it, and now we've got a shape of or the colour of an ear. Now what we can do is we just hit solo at the bottom, and now we're just working on the ear and nothing else. That'll make things much easier for us as we get going. So there are two of them there. So if you only want to work on one, if you just go over to trim, and we'll use trim with symmetry off and rectangle, and we'll just trim that one away. And that means we'll just work literally on the one ear for this section. So the first thing we want to do is just bring it into some sort of shape. So we'll basically line it over the top. We'll go up to here, up to our background again, and we'll bring the overlay a tiny bit on. It means we can pretty much do it just like that. See it like so. So we just bring that flattened cylinder into the rough shape of that ear. For now, we're just doing it from this one angle. So it gives us pretty much the shape that we want. Bring it to the side. Bring it over like this. So the cartilage is... A lot of the ear is all about overlapping shapes. And you'll get to see that within a few seconds. It doesn't take long to start seeing that an ear is such a simple shape. So that's pretty much there for now. So it's enough for us to be going on with. I'm actually going to change to a Matcap while I'm sculpting. It just helps me to see it a little bit better than the way we did have it. And now for the sculpting part, I'm just going to turn off that overlay. We'll also turn off post-processing. That just makes everything very, very simple now, like that. So we want to round it off first of all. So let's just check our polygon count. So we'll come up to topology. We've got 2,500 and something. It's basically 2 grand, 2,000 polygons. Not enough at all. So we will use a voxel remesh of about 200-ish. Doesn't really matter what it is. But that already has given us 66,000. And I'll subdivide that twice. That's given me about 1 million polygons to work with. And we'll bring that back down in a minute, but I just wanted nice and high res while I just do this next bit. So flatten tool first, and we'll just flatten off round this edge like so. Nice and low settings. So this is the earlobe at the bottom. This is the orange that we're looking at. This is the back of the ear. And we'll just smooth that down like so. Back of the lobe. All of that's done. And now we'll start laying out the shape. So we can go back now and we'll put the overlay back on a tiny, tiny bit while we just overlay the shapes. So let's use the crease tool to mark out where we want. So we want this cartilage coming all the way around the back like this. Like so. We want this bit here, the red bit is going to be this bit here. And then we've got a hole in here, and that comes down and meets that bit there. And that is as simple as it gets. Now, what you might want to do is now go in and mask it, perhaps. So we'll just use masking, like so. Check it's not gone on the back, which it hasn't. So we'll mask it up here. We're going to mask it around the back of here. So we're trying to define these shapes as much as we can. Mask it in the front here. Mask it in the front of here. Mask it around here. And these are the areas. We'll just unmask where we're not happy with it. Mask again where we want it back. And these are the areas that we'll just push into the head. So mask tap, and then we'll just use the gizmo, and we'll just move it all back. Clear the mask. So hold down mask and clear, and then just remesh it again. And then we'll smooth it all down, and that'll be our starting point then. So we want to go roughly the same amount, couple of 100, and that'll do it for us now. So now what we want to do is start sculpting on it. So we can get rid of that overlay. Let me just see if there's a brighter one. Bright pink. Matcaps are great for sculpting. They're usually they're pretty much the one that I use all the time for sculpting. PBR is good when you're doing the finish and you're setting up the lighting and you're doing all the other parts of it. So I've left mask on there, so just get rid of that. And that, believe it or not, is the core of it blocked out straight away. It doesn't take any time at all. Everything else now is about the secondaries, which is putting some creasing in. So we know we want to crease under there and go underneath. We know we want this to come round the back here, and that's not right there. The line was a little bit out there on the back. So we can smooth that right out. And then go back to crease for a minute. So we know we want this going under here. We didn't indicate that on the last bit. And then this comes around here, which is correct. This goes down in, as we know, and then there's the shape here that we indented a little bit. So we've got everything that we need. We're going a little bit out here, for example. This bit. Look at it from the side, and we're almost lined up quite well. So we can start moving. Again, just pull in one thing under another. This bit of cartilage in the middle comes out quite a lot. The back of the ear actually comes back out as well, and down to this bit, which is the lobe at the bottom. And then what we want to be thinking about is that this has got to attach to the head at the back, and it doesn't obviously attach all the way, but you just pull it out in the center. That will then intrude into the head, and we'll work that out once we get to that bit. But now at least we know we've got everything lined up, ready to go into the head. And obviously the lobe here will be sticking out, so that stays out. Maybe we should just use a bit more of that flatten. just to round that off a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Hadn't done that at the back, had I? So that didn't help us there a little bit. So again, back to move. And now we'll bring this, always be tucking under and pulling to the back. So this needs to be pulled like this. As you pull like this, it tightens things under. So if you pull here, smaller brush, it goes underneath and it makes that crease nicer there. And then this is tighter here. And this at the bottom is fine anyway. I keep masking by mistake. But if we just pull that underneath, again, you can see it doing what we want there. Now, I think this needs to be fixed in the middle where the cartilage goes back in on itself here. So we'll use the smooth tool and the flatten tool, and that should do it. Like so, and a bit more. So back to the clay tool. This is the clay that's going to build up the forms, and we'll bring that back a bit like that. That looks good. Cartilage on the top is good. Cartilage round the top is good. And I think we're almost there. Doesn't take long to learn an ear. Because it's just cartilage and you're not looking for surface forms of muscle, which is obviously a lot harder than this. You got very predictable shapes with just cartilage. Same as a lot of the nose is like this. So once you know those shapes, oops, I keep doing mask by mistake. Once you know those shapes, whether it be drawing or sculpting, it's incredibly easy to remember them, and it's incredibly easy to repeat them. So you'll be able to do ears. Once you've learnt an ear, you probably won't forget it. It's not something that you have to go back and relearn over and over again, because you just need to learn your primary forms, all your primary shapes that make up an ear, which is these colour blocks that I've given you. And then just do it over and over again until you know how to construct an ear. Sometimes people will go and get an ear. If you're using something like ZBrush and there's packs of modelling parts, people will go and get a pre-made ear and things like that. But as you can see from this, it takes minutes to do an ear. When you've taken the time to learn it, it really is quite simple. Okay, so we'll switch back to PBR. Looks horrible now, which is strange really, because you'd think it'd look better. And we've still got a bit of work to do, which we'll do once we're on the body. We can turn off that solo now, and you can see straight away, because we built it in place, it's pretty much in quite a good place there. So let's just for the sake of lining things up, let's take that ear. It's actually a little tiny bit too small, so I'm going to use the gizmo and scale it up a little bit, and it's a bit too far in, so I'm going to move it out, like so. I'm going to come up here, and we'll go right to left mirroring this time, and instantly we're in a good place. So it looks about right. We're just got to now use the move tool, and if you're doing this for the first time, go and get reference. As I always say, don't be doing this. Don't be winging this. Just try and get a decent piece of reference that works for what you want. And here is very simple, because you could just photograph your own if you need to. But what you're looking for is the positioning around the eyes, and you're looking for the positioning just below the nose. So he's too low, as you can see there. Ears wouldn't be quite as low as that. And make sure that they're far enough back on the head. So that was one problem I was just having then. They were way too far forward on the head, and just have a check of that to make sure you've got that correct. So we can turn the post-processing back on now, and that helps us a little bit again. So we're looking for form and shape now, and it's looking good. Well, the ear's looking good. And now all we need to do is just weld it in. So we'll take the sphere of the head. Good thing to do at this point is turn on outline, so you know that you've got the ears and the head selected. And we can simply just do a voxel merge and make it quite high this time, so it might take a minute to do it. We do it quite high because we want lots of resolution in the joint here. You'll see what I mean when I go back to clay. as we smooth it now and smooth the joint, because it's high res, it should look absolutely perfect, which it's not looking bad straight away. We'll just smooth it at the back. Like so. Now, what I do like to do is do a little bit of an inflate. And you'll see why I do that if I show you down here. If I inflate around here now, just around the edge, it's going to bring that outer cartilage over the top of the inner cartilage, and it just makes it look a little bit more realistic. A lot of times skin butts up against skin and causes, if you think about where your elbow bends and you've got your forearm meeting your bicep, then the skin's pressing against other skin. And that's what we're looking for, like under here, is the skin rolling over or pinching or going underneath. And that's generally a good way to, a good thing to be looking for, really, is that that weight of skin and cartilage onto another piece. And that's pretty much it for the ear. It's such an easy thing to do. What I'm going to do next is I did one paint over of the model, just to give us some kind of an indication of the colour. So what I'll do is I'll do it again now, but I'll do it as a time lapse, so you don't have to sit through that, because it's not really about that. But you'll see what a difference that makes once I've got that in. So I'll just start it off and show you how I would do this, but it's another video where we would cover it off in detail. But here's pretty much how I would do it. So I would take the paintbrush. I'm going to take a Dotty Alpha. I'm going to go, you might think this is a bit odd if you've not seen this before. I'm going to go with the bluey colour, and I'm going to paint all over just come up here. I'm going to paint all over his jaw and over his top of his philtrum and across under his cheek in a blue colour. That's to indicate the, he's got 2 holes still there from a mistake I made. I need to fix that in a minute. Bluey colour of his 5 o'clock shadow. I'm going to take around his cheeks. He's going to be quite flushed, so I'm going to do a lot of red around the creases of his nose and the end of his nose where there's blood on the surface, or just under the surface, I'll do red. So that would also mean is underneath his eyebrows. Around his eyes, there's a lot of pinks and reds in the skin there, and around his lip area. Always around the ear, there's one, it would be pinkish, and 2, it would also be a bit orangey, because we're faking what's called subsurface scattering around there, and that's where the light comes through the ear. And on the top of the head, because there's very little blood, there's only in your scalp, a lot of it looks grey yellow, like so. And then we'll go for a very, very neutrally skin colour, very light opacity. In fact, a little bit up on the opacity. And now we go over everything that we've done. So we go back over. Just make sure that's the right colour. I'm looking for a very, very simple skin colour now, like that. That's good. I'm going to change the alpha to this one, which is like just, it's like almost like a scratchy, stripy one. And that will give me quite nice skin if I go left and right. And now, being very, very careful not to fill the whole thing in, I'll just go over the top of everything that I've just done. And what that does is it leaves hints of blues and reds and all the colours I've just laid down coming through. But it gives me the final covering, but it still leaves those hints underneath. This is how you would paint as well. So, a lot of painters use this method. I think I read about this method in one of James Gurney's books. He's a very, very famous artist who's super, super talented with lots of mediums, so watercolours, oils. So, if you want to learn any of, colour theory or anything like that, that's pretty much who I follow all the time for this kind of thing. Don't forget to roll your lights if you need to. You'll get a much better idea of your painting if you're moving your lights around. like so. Something like that. And our post-processing is on, but we'll put our curvature back on now. We don't need colour grading actually. And then we'll just find good lighting, and then let's just finish off these areas. Actually, I didn't need curvature because it's giving me that line back. I'm not ready for that yet. Right, so what I will do is, as well, I'll just change the HDRI to a different HDRI. That just looks like a much nicer scene with that bluey colour in it, like so. And that's it, really, for our ears. So the ears were never something that we're going to take too long. It's always a very simple one to do. Is once you've learnt those basic structures, get yourself some reference, as I've said, and you'll have ears down in your first or second attempt, presuming you know how to use the tools that I've used. I wouldn't anticipate that you take too long over learning the ears. So have a go of those, and see what it ends up looking like. I hope you're enjoying these videos, and if you are, please give it a thumbs up, because it does help us get in front of other artists who might like this kind of content. And if you're going to give us a thumbs up, then why not subscribe to the channel, and then we can let you know when we upload new videos, which is every week. Hope you have a great week.